started. Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar's title is Step 1.5, Finance Your Studies. And in a moment, you will learn why this is Step 1.5. I'd like to give you a warm welcome from Education USA Canada team. My name is Zhao Ying. I'm the Education USA advisor based in Vancouver, British Columbia. I support students in Western Canada. So if you are in any of the provinces from British Columbia all the way to Manitoba, I will be your advisor. And I will now hand it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves. Han, why don't you go next?
Hi, everybody. My name is Hong. I'm your advisor based in Toronto. I help people in Southern Ontario, Greater Toronto area, and part of Northern Ontario. I see there are a few people from Toronto. Welcome, welcome. I'll pass it to Janica.
Hi, everyone. I'm your Eastern Canada advisor, Janica. So Ottawa, Quebec, everything east in the Atlantic and Northwest Territories and Nunavut. And I'm so excited that you're here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Janica. If you're not familiar with Education USA yet, if this is your first time at our event, Education USA, the Canada team here, we organize all sorts of events. So today's webinar is part of the webinar series of Prepare for the Fair. The goal is to prepare you for our spring in-person fair in 3 cities. That's Vancouver, Ottawa, and Toronto. If you're not able to join us in this in-person fairs, we still welcome you to join our virtual webinars. We have 2 more planned before the summer break. So on April 12th, we have a webinar about pre-professional study programs. And on May 3rd, we will have a student experience panel where you will hear from our student ambassadors. And here we have a link. You will be able to register directly for the next webinar. All right, as promised, I will explain more why Finance Your Study should be the step 1.5. So at Education USA, when we guide students through the journey of applying to schools in the US, we summarize the journey into 5 steps. And all of our webinars will help you navigate basically step 1 and 2, because these are the 2 steps that you should be doing right now if you are in grade 10, 11, even if you're in grade 9, it's never too early to start your research. So because the finance is so important and critical when we are making a decision on where you are going to pursue your higher education, even though it's step 2, really you should do it as you should consider the finance part as you are doing your research on the school options. So today we have some experts in the room to tell you more about the funding options in the United States. And their presentation will be focusing on the university financial aid piece. Typically, there are 4 types of financial aid you can look into from the university you will be attending. And today we'll be cover merit scholarships, need-based grants, and talent scholarships. The work study is employment. You will, as an international student, you are allowed to work up to 20 hours on campus during your semester. And the definition on campus is very broad. It can be anything like a cafeteria, workshop, bookstore, library, anything associated with the campus. And then in addition to the university financial aid, as a Canadian citizen or permanent resident, you can apply for funding or grants from the government and then use that money to study at an accredited post-secondary institution in the US. If you have any questions about the other types of funding options, you're more than welcome to reach out to your Education USA advisor for more information. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists. We have three experts from three different institutions. First, I present to you Mr. Xiaofeng Wang from Amherst College, and he will tell us more about need-based grant. Xiaofeng, over to you.
Thank you, Jiaying. Hi, everybody. It's such a pleasure to connect with you all here. My name is Xiaofeng Wang. I'm an Associate Dean of Admission. I also coordinate our international admission. I used to be an international student in the United States as well. So I know all the steps that you're thinking through right now because I went through all of them back in those days. Finance is such an important step to think about because it can make or break any college offer that you have received or that you will receive because it'll eventually determine whether or not you can afford an education at a particular institution. American universities are among some of the most expensive in the world, probably the most expensive in the world. So having financial support from the institution can be very helpful, especially if you have financial need. And that's what I'm going to focus on today. There are two different financial aid types that you'll typically see. One is merit-based aid, which my colleague will focus on later. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about need-based financial aid. Need-based financial aid, namely, is based on your need. So the institution will look at how much money you can afford and you can pay towards your children's education in college. And then they will see how much money they have and how much they are available or are willing to provide you with. Sometimes they'll meet 100% of your demonstrated need. Sometimes they'll meet 70% or 80%. So this is what need-based financial aid means in general. So it's based on your actual need. So how do they know how much money you can afford to pay for college? One of the forms that you will often see or hear is the CSS profile form. Another form that is actually free to use is the International Student Financial Application. Or some institutions may have their own financial aid forms for you to fill out. So based on these forms, you will be asked to submit documents about your family's financial situation. And then based on the institution's own methodology, they will calculate how much money your family can actually afford to pay towards your children's education in college. And then what they will do is they will use the total cost of attendance, which looks something like this. The format is a little not in order, but you get a sense of what the total cost of attendance includes, which is everything: tuition, room and board, health insurance, books and supplies, personal expenses and travel. So let's say it comes up to be $70,000, right? And based on your financial aid application, if your family can pay $10,000, and what the institution will do is they'll do a simple math. They'll use the 70,000 to subtract the 10,000, so 60,000 will be your demonstrated need. So this is how much money you would need to be able to afford the institution. And so typically in a need-based financial aid package, you'll see three components. One is the main part, which is scholarship. And scholarship is from the institution, and it's free money. You don't have to pay back. So it could be somewhere between $58,000 to $55,000. So this is all hypothetical, okay? And student loans can range from 0 to $3,000 a year. So the most generous institutions, for example, Amherst College, we have no loans for everybody. So if you receive financial aid, you don't have to pay anything back. Some institutions will have some amount of loans. So multiply by 4, and then that's the amount of money that you need to pay back. And then work study. Work study is, we mentioned that a little bit earlier, where you get to work on campus and make pocket money, so you can use the money to spend on whatever you want. It's an extra income to support your studies and your living expenses. So these three components will typically add up to be the total cost, the total financial need that you have. So meaning that you will have enough to afford your education at that institution. So this formula is what we just looked at. So institutions that provide need-based financial aid will use the total cost of attendance, which includes everything, not just tuition, to subtract your family's contribution, and then the rest is how much money you would need. And for a school that gives you 100% of that, they will give you all of these, all 60,000, using these three components. I hope it makes sense. And a little bit more about this section here, so what's involved. You'll see one item here called certificate finances. This is often used during the admission process, where institutions will look at how much money your family have in the bank account, especially for institutions that are need aware for international students. They want to make sure that when they admit you, you will have enough, or that you can provide enough funding to support your education there. So you will often see that. You will not see certificate finances at colleges or universities who are knee blind for international students. Knee blind means your financial ability to pay has nothing to do, is not looked at during the admission process. So this is, the most ideal situation, but unfortunately, there are only 7 schools in the United States that are knee blind for international students. So that they include Amherst College, where I work, another liberal arts college called Bowdoin College in Maine, and then Harvard, Yale, Princeton, MIT, and Dartmouth College. So only these 7 schools are knee blind for international student, where you do not have to submit certificate finances. So in general, if you have actual financial need and you want to apply for financial aid, and you want to take advantage of need-based financial aid, if it is offered by an institution, you might go to a school's website and it says, we do not provide financial aid for any international student. Then, if you need money, then you know that you're not going to get help from the institution. But if the school says we do meet 100% of demonstrated need, or we do provide need-based aid for international students, then you know that there's a possibility of getting need-based aid. So that's my part. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have later, and we will go over to merit-based aid.
Yeah, thank you so much, Xiaofang. So my name's Ryan Griffin. I'm the director of the International Admissions Office at the University of Missouri. You may also know us as Mizzou, which is our nickname, and we use quite frequently. So as mentioned, I'm going to talk to you a little bit first about merit-based aid, as well as then we'll look at athletic aid. So when we talk about academic merit aid, as the name kind of implies, this is going to be scholarships or financial aid that you earn based on your academic record. So it's going to be scholarships that look at your academic performance. If that can be a component of how you've performed in the secondary coursework that you've taken, understanding the curriculum, if you've challenged yourself and how you've performed in the courses that you've taken, as well as often it can have a component of standardized test scores like the SAT or the ACT. It also may be a holistic process involving you submitting perhaps a supplemental essay, a resume, or some performance related materials that are going to help that school better know if you're worthy of the academic aid that they offer. Now, academic merit awards can also be awarded to special populations. These can reflect institutions' different goals in enrolling students from underrepresented minorities or certain areas of the world. So, for example, institutions that are on the Canadian border may have special scholarships specifically for Canadian students. Other schools in different areas may also have scholarships for students from the Caribbean or students coming from Central Asia or Sub-Saharan Africa. So academic merit awards may also have a population component to them. And then lastly, there can also be specific academic awards that are coming from different programs on different campuses. Again, institutions will use merit-based aid to help meet their enrollment goals. So if there are different programs on a campus that are looking to increase their enrollment, they may have specific academic scholarships that students can earn if they go into that particular program. Now, in general, academic merit aid or merit-based aid is the most common type of financial aid for international students. As Xiaofang mentioned, need-based aid can be very rare at many institutions in the US. So academic merit awards can typically be a student's best chance at helping to finance their education. Now, what should you know to go through the process and up your chances of getting academic merit awards? Now, not surprisingly, this is going to look different at almost every institution here in the US. So make sure that you're paying attention to the schools that you're interested in. Merit-based aid often can be further divided into what we call automatic awards, which again, as the name would suggest, are going to be offered to all students that meet those requirements. Many times you'll see this actually on websites. So universities will tell you what sort of requirements with a GPA or perhaps with a test score that you would need to earn and what level or what amount of financial aid in merit-based awards that may earn you. The other side of that can be competitive awards. Now with these, this can be a little bit harder to pin down exactly what those requirements are going to look like because they may float from year to year depending on what that class looks like, what that applicant pool looks like at that university. Competitive awards are typically ones that may require some additional work on your part as an applicant. So perhaps providing a separate application, maybe even needing to write a specific essay or providing additional information specifically for that program. So for example, on my campus, we do offer a mixture of automatic and competitive merit-based awards for international students. The automatic awards are ones that if you go to our website, you can see exactly what sort of performance you're going to need to have to be able to earn those awards. Now, the competitive awards are ones, if you meet certain minimum requirements, we'll provide you with a separate application to be able to complete that and compete for those additional awards. Now, the timelines for these sorts of scholarships are also going to vary greatly from institution to institution. Again, frequently with automatic merit-based awards, you may already be being reviewed for that as you apply. But if it's going to be a competitive award, there may be additional deadlines that you need to make sure that you supply that material to the university and maybe even participate in additional processes like an interview or being able to meet with an alum or admissions representative. So make sure that you're paying attention to all those deadlines to maximize your opportunities. And now we're going to shift gears and look a little bit at athletic aid. So this can be scholarships that are offered to athletes to compete on university teams. And in the US, there are three main governing associations that kind of look over this process. So the three that we have listed here, the NJCAA, so this is the National Junior College Athletic Association. As the name implies, it is overseeing those community college or two-year schools here in the United States. So students can start their athletic and academic careers at a two-year school and then perhaps look to go on to a four-year school later, but they can receive athletic aid while competing in an NJCAA school. Next up on that list is the NAIA. This is a conglomeration of smaller schools, so usually smaller institutions that compete at the NAIA level. And these institutions can also offer students scholarships based on their athletic performance. And then the last and probably best known organization is the NCAA. In fact, right now, if any of you are basketball fans here in the US, we're going through the NCAA March Madness, men's and women's basketball tournaments, which is an exciting time. And those are specifically the Division I schools that are competing there. We'll kind of look at what that internal division within NCAA looks like on one of our further slides. So the NCAA, again, probably the one that most people are familiar with, governs athletes from over 1,200 different institutions here in the US. So it has a certain set of rules that students that are looking to earn athletic aid from NCAA member schools that they'll need to go through. Now, those schools and those coaching staffs, as you get into the recruitment process, will certainly help you with what you need to do to be NCAA eligible. But the NCAA website is also a great place to start because it does have lots of great information for potential student athletes. Now, the NCAA, as I mentioned on the previous slide, is further divided into 3 divisions. So my school, the University of Missouri, we compete at what's called NCAA Division I. That's the top division. These are typically larger schools as far as their student body size, as well as looking at their athletic programs and the sorts of budgets that go into those. And so these schools are able to offer athletic scholarships, and many of them even up to full ride or full cost of attendance scholarships that student athletes can earn. Now, Division II, these are usually a little bit smaller schools, but once again, athletic aid is available for students that compete at that NCAA Division II level. And then Division III are typically the smallest schools. And with these schools, students can't earn specific athletic aid, although they will still have options to be able to earn aid while competing for those teams. Now, it's important to know that especially when we're talking about NCAA Division I, it is a very, very competitive process to be able to earn scholarships. So as the graphic here represents, there are over 7 million athletes at the secondary school level, and there's only about 2% of those that will actually end up on NCAA teams. And of that group, it's only going to be about 1% that are able to earn one of those full cost of attendance scholarships that we mentioned that can come from NCAA Division I schools. So it can be a very competitive process, and it's certainly one that you're going to want to spend some time making sure that you maximize your opportunities if you are a highly competitive athlete. Now, how do we do that? So some tips for you to be able to look at this is obviously, like you will with any schools, start your university research early, especially if you're looking to go into athletics. Those coaches on those teams who will have the final decision in who's going to be recruited and who's going to receive the scholarship dollars that they have, they're already looking several years in advance. So they know when they're going to have students graduating, when they're going to have openings on their different programs. And so they're already thinking about and looking at the students that they're going to recruit several years before that student may be graduating. So make sure that you make a list, that it's got schools that are going to fit your athletic and your academic goals. So making sure that what you want to study, all of the things that go into your normal university list are going to need to go here as well. But then you're going to have that extra filter of wanting to see if your athletic program is there, if it's one that school offers scholarships for, and if it's one that it looks like you would have a competitive chance of being able to earn one of those scholarships. Make sure that your list is fluid. Be able to adjust that as you learn more and as you communicate more with the coaching staff and with the admissions officers at those schools to get a better feel for if that's going to be a good fit for you. Now, as I mentioned, it's a process that typically is quite lengthy. So try and get on the coach's radar early. As I mentioned, the coaches are really going to be the ones who have that deciding piece as to whether or not they would like to offer you a scholarship. So reach out and contact those coaches and recruiting coordinators. If there's teams you're interested in and schools you're interested in, spend time on their athletics website. They'll typically have those contacts listed for coaches, for recruiting coordinators for different sports. And also often they'll have a student athlete recruitment questionnaire. So this is a great way for you to be able to fill that out. If it's a sport that has a lot of quantifiable times and different events or placements that you've had, you're able to fill that in there. And that can help the team to get to know you, as well as start that conversation and communication going back and forth between you and the coaching staff and the team. It's also not a bad idea to spend some time preparing a video highlight reel, making sure that you have a good athletic resume that highlights all of the different achievements that you've had within your sport, and having that ready to be able to share out as a Google Drive, on a Google Drive, on YouTube if you're going the video route, but making sure that it's something that's easily accessible so that when you reach out and share to these coaches, that they're going to be able to easily find your work. It's also a great idea to tap into the coaches that you have now. If that's your coach at a secondary school level, or if you're playing in a regional team or a provincial team, or if you're playing in some teams outside of just your own school, see what sort of contacts those coaches have. If they've worked with Other coaches at the university level, they may already have that communication path smoothed out for you and can make the introduction to help you get noticed. Now, another thing that is important and that many schools will encourage you to do, and again, once you get in contact with them through that recruitment questionnaire or by reaching out to those staffs, they're going to let you know if they put on university camps, either team camps or individual camps, or if they participate in maybe a camp swing program or summer camps where you can actually go and then get in front of those coaches. So the best way, obviously, to make a great impression is to firsthand be able to show off your skills and hopefully get noticed by some of those coaches. So not a bad idea to even start looking at that again in your sophomore and junior years, because waiting until you get up to the final years of your career in high school may be a little bit too late to get you the most offers possible. And then also keep your coaches updated as you continue to perform within your sport. If your times are improving, if you've added some different achievements, if the team that you're playing with has won another championship or something to add to that resume that you first shared, don't be shy to continue to update that. Let coaches know what you're doing. And then lastly, I would say make sure that you keep performing at a very high level, both on the field as well as in the classroom. So again, you're going to need to meet the academic standards for admission to the institutions you're looking at. And those organizing governing bodies we mentioned also have some rules that universities have to follow as far as making sure that their student athletes are succeeding in the classroom and moving on towards their degrees as well. So coaches are not only looking for someone that can be a benefit to them on the court or on the field, but they also want to know that they're going to be a benefit to the university inside their classroom. So there's some tips for potential student athletes, as well as those of you looking for the most common forms of merit-based aid. And now we're going to turn it over to another colleague to look at talent-based aid.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. My name is Josh, or Joshua. I am an international missions counselor over at California Baptist University. I actually don't oversee our students incoming from Canada, but our current counselor is traveling around the world. So I'm here. If you want to get connected at all, I'll be sure to point you in her direction. She's great. So yeah, so today I'm talking a little bit about performing and fine arts scholarships. Unlike the other two types of aid, these are a little bit more subjective. So it's not based on one particular grade that you may have, nor is it based on your athletic prowess, but it is something that I think is actually offered at a much wider range for students. Well, maybe not except for grades, because everyone has grades coming in. So for fine arts scholarships, I'm going to talk about two different ways that you can get these. There are scholarships that are offered by universities, and then there's outside scholarships. So within universities, you have liberal arts colleges that have a wide range of different programs, and not just like fine arts programs. And a lot of these also vary based on their own like regulations and such. So some they may require you to be an art major or be part of their College of Arts and Design. Some of them you can maybe just add a scholarship with a minor, and some of them you don't have to be a major or a minor, and you can just take some classes. Art institutes, on the other hand, because they are just art programs, they can give you much larger scholarships as well. So the liberal art colleges probably won't give you a full scholarship for doing art, but art institutes would be more willing and have more funds to be able to do that. For almost all of these, you would need to be accepted to the university before applying and receiving these particular scholarships. In terms of how to do that, each university has different processes. Some will ask you to upload a portfolio, kind of like how Ryan was talking about having just like an audition tape ready almost of like your athletic ability. You want to have something like that, like for your art. So that could be a portfolio, that could be a website, that could be any type of, I mean, if you're interested in like architecture, maybe some designs that you've made in the past. And then moving on to outside scholarships, there's all kinds of different outside scholarships for fine arts scholarships. There's all based on different criteria, and these aren't specific to one university. So if you were to apply for a scholarship at, let's say CBU, for example, for the fine arts department because you've been accepted, you wouldn't be able to take that scholarship and then go to another university. Whereas these outside scholarships, they're willing to either give you a check or be willing to like reimburse you. But again, it all depends. There's organizations that do this. There's different government entities. A great thing that you could do probably is to connect with EdUSA to kind of see what types of different scholarships for fine arts that they're aware of in your local area that they'd be willing to help you with applying for. A lot of these also have really important deadlines. As I was doing research for this, I saw a lot of the deadlines actually are in March, so you'd probably want to hop on that as soon as possible. Moving on to different performing arts scholarships. These are I'm kind of going to split it in the same way that I did with the fine arts scholarships. And for performing arts, there's also a lot of different categories as well, and I guess for fine arts as well. So specifically for performing, I also included music into that. So in the same way, liberal arts colleges like CBU, we're able to include this type of scholarship, whether or not you are a specific music or theater major. But and they wouldn't be for full scholarships, but we do have quite a few performing arts colleges that will give you full scholarships. In the same way, you would need to be accepted for these schools and then apply for them and then receive it. And usually, whether it's for theater or for music, it'll require some type of audition. So kind of like Ryan again was mentioning about athletic scholarships and or just being a student athlete in general, you want to be sure that you have things in your back pocket that you're ready to pull out. And I'll kind of give an example as well after this or after this particular slide. But then since we're going to move back to that, moving on to outside scholarships, again, there are so many different types of scholarships for students who are interested in theater and music. And again, these can come from government entities, they can come from organizations, they could come from all over the place. So just to give a quick example of these different types of scholarships at CBU, we have two really big ones, which are for our theater students and our music students, both under the School of Performing Arts. We allow both our theater and non-theater majors to get those scholarships, depending on how many different productions they're in, since we do have a theater on campus that we do productions for. If they're like a lead role in a production and they're doing that production, like I think they put on like 10 to 15 different plays or shows per semester, their scholarship's going to be much higher. Whereas if maybe they're just a makeup artist within the theater production, they're going to have a much smaller scholarship. You could potentially also, I mean, we've talked about work study, you could work for these departments as well. So doing like lighting or stage, you would be able to kind of get a stipend or an hourly rate as well. For music, we have a wide range of ensembles at CBU. So there's like a jazz one, a choir and orchestra one, a pop band one, there's a opera one. So there's a lot of different ones that students can be a part of. And so within music, it's a little bit different because depending on how many you're in, it'll actually determine how much scholarship you get. And what's really unique about being at CBU too is that you don't actually have to be a music student to be in a music ensemble. If you're good and you're musically talented, you can get in. And you could also be an engineering major at the same time. So that's just kind of the range of it. And then finally, I kind of mentioned auditions. A lot of different have different ways to audition. Some of them will want you to come in person, and if you are ever in the area for any of these universities that you're applying for, that would be a great opportunity for you because you'd be able to see the campus, maybe meet with like a professor or a program director and be able to perform for him on the spot. But a lot of them also, knowing that you're international, will be a little bit more flexible with you and allow you to maybe upload an audition or schedule a virtual audition with a program director or a professor. So this is just a screenshot from our webpage. As you can see, there's two different options there to either schedule or upload an audition. They accept like a YouTube clip or a not PDF, like a video file, or you can schedule it with the professor. And they're very flexible, just depending on like what your instrument is or your singing capability. Sometimes they'll ask you to perform something in particular, and sometimes they'll say, just play me something. So yeah, that's kind of it for me. As you can see, there's a wide range of different scholarships that can come in the performing arts sector. If you have any other questions about that, please let me know after this. Don't ask me to sing, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have about this. Thank you.
Thank you to our panelists for the presentation. So now I'm going to open the floor for questions. I know some questions have already been asked and answered in the chat. If you have more questions, please feel free to type them either in the Q&A box or in the chat box, and we will pose these questions to the speakers. Okay, so here is a question that have come in. I think this can be answered from all the different perspectives of the speakers. The question is, are there any preferences given to highly rigorous programs such as AP, IB, or Cambridge qualification students? How about we start this with Xiaofeng?
Sure, happy to start. This is such a great question, Eugene. And so I work at a college that only provides need-based financial aid. So the only criterion that we use to award aid is based on your need. So it has nothing to do with your AP, IB, or A-level, or Cambridge, or any other curriculum. So these academic offerings or courses are considered as part of your admission process. So once you are admitted, then every student is on the same line, and then we will evaluate how much money they will need. Is it 10,000? Is it 20,000? Is it 80,000? Or do you not need any money? So depending on your actual need, then we will meet 100% of each of the student who is admitted. So that everybody who is admitted to Amherst can afford Amherst because they'll receive enough funding from the college to complete their 4 years here. One thing I have to mention, which I forgot to mention earlier, is need-based financial aid needs to be renewed every year because your financial situation at home may change. For example, let's use a very simple example. If you have won the lottery suddenly and you're going to your second year, you now have $5 million and you were on financial aid the first year. So you no longer need money from the institution or from Amherst. Then for the second year, you will not receive any money. So in other words, we only give student funding if they have need. So that's a long answer to your question, which works a little bit differently here at Amherst.
Ryan, how about from the Merit Scholarship perspective?
Yeah, so again, it can vary from institution to institution, but very typically there's going to be additional weight that can be added to students that challenge themselves with a more rigorous curriculum. So if you're a student who is opted to take multiple AP courses, that can actually help you when you're looking at merit-based aid. So often, for example, at my institution, if we see a student who is opted to take the AP version of, say, their geography course as opposed to the standard version, we know that's going to be a more difficult course. And so the student earning the A in that we're actually going to give them a little bit more weight when we create that GPA that's used to see if they earn any of our merit-based aid. It's also one where for something like the International Baccalaureate and the diploma program, many schools will actually look at that just based specifically on the number of IB points you're going to earn. So instead of converting or changing this around, we're going to actually look directly at the scores that you've earned there and then have a rubric to see if that meets the requirements that we have. So I don't know if it would be preferences, but we do like to see students that have challenged themselves as well as then done well in the coursework that they chose to take. And Joshua, how about for you all?
For us as a university, yes. If students have a higher, I guess, depending on like how their GPA is weighted, that will affect in terms of like their merit-based aid. We will give higher. For us, it is kind of like you were mentioning, I believe. Or maybe it was. I'm sorry, it might have been Xiaofeng. It is automatic, so there's not a application for it. In terms of needs based, we grade a student based on an application that is it takes into account a lot of different factors, and one of them is grades as well. So if a student is doing better, they can potentially be bumped up a tier in terms of getting more needs based aid. But yeah, I guess to answer that question, yes, a highly performing student would have a better chance of getting more aid from us as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before we move on to the next question, I'm just going to, I guess that poll was already launched. Oh, never mind, just kidding. Okay, so the next question is, where do we find all the different types of scholarships? So I will mention that on this webinar platform that you are seeing, there is a little handout section where we have a PDF that you can download. And this PDF includes a simple write-up of basically the high-level information of what we covered in this presentation. And also it includes some highlighted scholarships or tuition discount for Canadian citizens or permanent resident. And also my colleague Jenica shared a link in the chat on our website. We have more resources on things like search engines where you will be able to find more scholarship information. And I will pose this question now back to our speakers. Where can students find scholarship information?
And I can offer a brief overview, and my colleagues can jump in as well. So every college's website has a page dedicated to financial aid. And I would encourage you to go to every school's website and search Office of Financial Aid, and then study the information that you find there. Usually you will find all the information that you'll need. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the financial office or the admission office. We can direct you there as well. A part of our job is to help you navigate the process. We're not just sitting here to read your applications and make decisions. that's part of our job, but a big part of our job is also just to help you navigate the process. So feel free to reach out to us if you can't find the information.
Yeah, that's great advice, Xiaofeng. Admissions officers are here to help you find all of those scholarships possible. And I'll say that at a large institution like mine, as I mentioned in my presentation, when we're looking at merit-based aid, there can be a lot of scholarships that maybe aren't readily apparent. So departmental scholarships or scholarships for certain majors on campus within certain areas. But again, your admissions officer at the schools you're interested in can probably be your best resource for helping navigate maybe some of those additional scholarships that you can look at. Anything to add there, Josh?
Yeah, I don't think so. Those are both great points. I would just say the same thing. Just communicate as much as you can with your admissions counselor. They're called a counselor because they want to counsel you through just figuring out what you want to decide, or I guess some are admissions advisors. So same thing. They want to advise you for what is your best move, and oftentimes like yeah, if it doesn't make financial sense for a student to come to CBU, because they've got a way better scholarship for something that CBU doesn't offer at a different university. A lot of times we will definitely like there may be more things that we can pull out and like, oh, maybe this scholarship will work for you, or maybe you could consider adding this, or as a non-music major, maybe you could apply for these auditions. But at the end of the day, we want what's best for the student, and so we're not gonna if it makes way more sense for a student to go somewhere else, we would definitely support the student in that. So yeah.
Thank you for all the answers from the speaker. I will just add that if you ask Education USA, we always advise students to go through this order. So first, you reach out to the university directly to ask what scholarships are available. And then you reach out to your provincial government to apply for any loans, grants, scholarships you can receive from the provincial and the federal government. And then the third and last step is to spend time looking for outside scholarship, or we call external scholarship, because there is a whole world of scholarships out there. The requirements vary, the amount varies, and you can really spend a lot of time looking in that world for scholarships. So I want to emphasize that you want to make sure that you reach out to the schools first and the government next. And then if you have time and energy, spend some time looking for outside or external scholarships. All right. Yes, we will be sharing this recording with all the registered participants. So while we wait for the questions to come up, I have a question for I think for Xiaofeng. Earlier you mentioned part of the need-based package often includes work study. And I know international students can look for work study opportunities on campus as well. And this is, I guess this question is for everyone really. On your campus, what does it look like for a student to apply for a work study position? Is it competitive? Do students apply directly to the position, or is it centralized? How likely is it for student to get a work study position?
Yes. So I before I answer, I want Canadian students and parents to know that once they're here, they won't navigate the environment all on their own, because we have many support systems on campus in place to help international students navigate all of these, especially the International Student Office on campus. Different schools may call it differently. At Amherst, it's called the Center for International Student Engagement, which creates not only a physical space, but also an environment where students can gather and create community together through many different activities. And they also provide great advice on employment on campus. We also have a separate office for immigration services, just to help students navigate the requirements of being on an F1 visa, which is a student visa. And so our students work all sorts of jobs on campus through work study. In our admission office, we have student workers who staff our front desk and who help navigate our visitors. And in the library, we have student workers working there as well, the dining hall, and virtually every department, everywhere on campus, you'll find student workers working there as part of their work study. So it is fairly easy to find jobs, and you can work multiple jobs as long as they don't add up to be over 20 hours. And I think the minimum wage in Massachusetts now is 1525. I hope I'm right. If you work 20 hours a week, that can add up to be a sizable amount that you can use to spend on, dinners with friends in town or anything else that you want to spend the money on. So basically, it's we make it very easy for our students to do that. So yeah, at Amherst, I would say it's fairly easy to find jobs and to navigate the process.
Yeah, very similar at the University of Missouri as well. So right now, almost every department on campus that has student employees is looking for more. That's something we've seen kind of post-pandemic, that a lot of these different organizations on our campus are needing more help. And at Mizzou, we actually have a special program that we work with our incoming admitted international students. We call it our Smart Work Mizzou program, to where over the summer, even prior to them arriving on campus, we start to share out for those students wanting to have campus employment, we start to share out their resumes and connect them with different campus employers so that they're able to, from day one, arrive on campus and kind of start that process. So it is one where we think that can be a big part of the university experience for many international students, not only for the extra money, like Xiaofang mentioned, which can be very important, but also then working in an English-speaking environment. Potentially, it can also be getting some professional experience. If you're working as a teaching assistant or a research assistant, being able to kind of further your academic goals in line with what you're doing vocationally there on campus as well.
Yeah, same for us. I mean, our campus, we have probably, we're not a huge campus, but we probably have around like 700 ish student worker positions. And they range from, kind of like you guys were mentioning, from inside our office, like we literally have international students who work for us helping with the admissions process, to our front desk, to the food provider services, to safety services, to working for conferences and events where they help set up and tear down different events on campus. So there's students, there's positions all over the place, and a huge percentage of our international students have jobs. It is also obviously the minimum wage is also pretty high here, $15.50, I believe, which also means that cost of living is higher. But with that minimum wage, you're able to make probably around, I think we did the math once, it was around like $6,000 to $7,000 a year that you can either put towards your education, or kind of like Xiaofeng was mentioning, you could use for saving up and I don't know, enjoying time with your friends, going on vacation, things like that. So yeah, we have a career center on campus that helps students with finding jobs, bringing employers on campus, but also like specifically for students who want to find jobs while they're here, like jobs on campus. And then we also have, it's called Handshake. So it's like, it helps them apply for jobs here. But then that's for all students at CBU. And then we have one specifically for international students called Inner Stride. And that also actually like very nicely bleeds into like students going into OPT after they graduate as well. So it has options for on-campus work, and then options for off-campus work as well once they've graduated. So yeah, those are some of the different resources that we have to offer.
That is fantastic. All right, as we wait to see if we have any final questions, I will just launch this link to everybody where you can register directly for our fair. And again, this fair is taking place in May in Vancouver, Ottawa, and Toronto. And I have put up our contact information here. If you would like to hear more about our events, learn more about Education USA, please check out our website and our social media. All right, if there are no more questions, I think that concludes our webinar today. Thanks everybody for joining today. We look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.